Not audible.
Sir, now I'm audible, sir.
Yes, now you can
Yeah.
start your comments.
He completed his Bachelor of Engineering in Electronic and Communication in Coimbatore, Anna University 2006, Master of Engineering in Communication System in SSN College of Engineering, Chennai 2014, and Doctor of Philosophy in Antenna Design and Testing in Anna University, Chennai. He is having the 8-year research experience, 5 years of experience in telecom, and 1.5 years experience in teaching, and 1.5 years of experience in mentoring team members. He received several awards for his work and also published 7 journals and presented 7 conferences. By giving this brief introduction, I hand over the session to Dr. V. Lingasamy, sir. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Karan sir, and welcome. Thank you, madam, for
Thank you,
this
sir.
introduction. So, yeah, so we shall move on for the day. So now I'm going to talk about antennas for various applications. So I'm not able to cover entire application. So here I have given a few applications where antennas are finding interest. Okay. So this will be my outline of the presentation. Like I will initially talk about some of the uh, basic thing about electromagnetics and then antennas, and then we'll see various types of antennas. So and why they evolved, and followed by some of the applications of antenna. Only very few applications of antennas where the antenna are, mostly used, and some of the challenges and opportunities. So this is where we discuss more on what are challenges we face while designing antennas, and what that will convert that will give us opportunity to pursue the more research on that, and followed by simulation and testing. So how antenna present scenario simulation and testing are going on, and some of the testing tools and design tools. Okay. So now let's move on to the basics of wireless communication system. So here I'm talking about why antenna is necessary. So if you talk wireless, then antenna comes into picture. Okay. So here wireless communication system is that. For example, you are sending a audio signal through transmitting antenna. It can be any antenna. For the illustration, I have given a satellite antenna. Okay. And then you in the environment you will find clouds and surfaces, houses, and so various environment. It will reach the receiving antenna, and then it is a here it is a repeater case. So so it will reach in the receiver end. Okay. Here you can see that. So multiple antennas are involved in this. You can see here transmitter side and receiver side. If you have a satellite, if you are talking about satellite communication, you will see a repeater also, like satellite transponder. Okay. So antennas plays a major role here. So without that we can't establish any wireless communication systems. So now before we move on, we'll briefly discuss about some of the EM laws, some of the EM laws that is mostly used in, that is mostly behind the any antenna design for that matter. So first one is Gauss law, so and Faraday's law, and then Gauss law for magnetism. So what it talks about? So Gauss law talks about if you have a charged particle in in the environment, it will create an electric field. Okay. So if you have a charged particle in some environment, it will create an electric field. That's what it says. Okay. And what Faraday's invented. So Faraday's invention is very much it was the key for the electrical evolution in the electrical and electromagnetics, because he only invented first time the change in electric field create change in magnetic field. So or changing magnetic field will create change in electric field. So this is where several motors, DC motors, AC motors, induction motors, several motors are evolved based on this principle. Okay. Next is Gauss law for magnetism. So magnetism, what it says, there is no magnetic monopoles. So like we have electric monopole is available, you can have, positive or negative charge isolated, but in magnetism we don't have such a concept until now. Okay, maybe in future they may invent. Okay, next is Ampere Maxwell's law, first half and second half. So first half talks about current. When you have a current flowing in a wire or any conductor or any material, you will feel a magnetic field. Okay, thus you could have for example, if you want to observe, if you want to feel this one, then there will be a high power transmission line going towards any highways or your agriculture land. That time you feel a sound is coming. So that is actually a magnetic field. If you go, place your hand, finger close to that, you will observe that magnetic field. Okay. Next is don't try out this, so you will feel that. That's it. Ampere Maxwell's law. Second half talks about this was the evolution or basic phenomena for one more thing. Kalayarasan, sir. So are you recording this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm recording the video, sir. Okay. Okay.
So, okay. So magnetic field can also be created by changing electric field. So this is where the complete cycle has found out. So I will explain in a minute or so. And Lorentz force law and the first half, second half. So if you are excited, electric force will be excited. If a charge particle in the electric field, then electric force will be excited. So force is, electric field is nothing but it's a force, okay, between two charged particles or within the particles. Okay. Now, so how a cycle will be? See, in the cycle, see, you will have a charged particles that will create a electric field. Okay. So when you have a electric field, so charged particles, if you it will be if your accelerator charges means it will keeps on changing. Therefore, the electric field will keep on changing. So this law, so this was the contribution by Maxwell's actually. So Ampere law, first law was up to this only. For example, change in current. First off, Ampere's law basically for up to this much only. Change in current density will create a magnetic field. Okay, and Ampere only added this displacement current concept. Okay, so this was done by some capacitor law, and then if you want to read, you can read that. Several papers appear on these concepts. Okay, so so let's come back to this. So if you have accelerator charges, so charges keeps on changing. Therefore, the electric field D is nothing but epsilon E. Okay, so E keeps on changing. So when E keeps on changing, then H also will keeps on changing. When H is changing, then when B is nothing but mu H, so E is changing. It's a kind of a coupled thing, okay, or a cycle. Okay, so therefore the wave is propagating. Otherwise, if it stops at one phenomena, then you will not have it's a static field. Okay, not a dynamic field or electromagnetic wave. It will be a static wave. Okay, if one phenomenon is alone happening, then it will become a electrostatic field. So if the wave want to propagate, then all these phenomena will happen. So that's what Maxwell's equation says. Okay, and so next is now so Maxwell's equation. You feel that you will always see mathematical equations, right? So in your antennas book also, you always see several mathematical equations. So why is it that required? So you can see that. So why mathematics is required for to understand to appreciate the electromagnetic fields? Because, for example, this is the horn antenna. You will get the radiation pattern, three-dimensional radiation pattern like this. Okay. So I will take one cut of it. Okay, one cut of this pattern, which will become 2D pattern. Okay, I am plotting here E and H plane. Okay, then I want to predict using theoretical equation. What I am doing, using simple cosine function. Okay, it's cos power n theta. Actually, I am varying n in order to see where it is matching. Okay, you can see here that it is matching at this point, right? For cos 10.5 theta. So here what we are achieving, we are before we go for experimental or simulation, what we are doing here. So using mathematical equation, we are reproducing the antenna behavior, right? In terms of, it can be a radiation pattern, it can be a VSW or anything. Okay, there are a number of equations are available in the antennas books, like estimation of a radiation pattern using equations, and estimation of mismatch, like VSWR and many parameters. So the equations are required to predict the behavior of the antenna. So for to certain extent, so we can't do it. We can't do a mathematical modeling for all the antennas, but some of the antennas, some of the phenomena we can do it. Okay, under certain conditions. Okay. Next is so most of the time we are confusing with dB and dBi. That's why I wanted to emphasize, because I was confused. So that's why I want to, every time I use this slide, part of presentation. So dB dBi is different. Okay. So for example, again, if you are denoting the antenna gain, you have to always denote in terms of either dBi or dBd. Okay. So dBi is nothing. It's actually because in amplifier you might have seen gain will be in dB. Okay, because it's a input power, output power by input power. Okay, so how much is the amplified? How much the input signal got amplified at the output? That is what it amplifier gain denotes. But in antenna, it is different concept, because gain is a reference value, so relative parameter here. So because either it is the reference parameter is a isotropic source, then you will call it as dBi, or it can be a dipole source. Okay, then see here it is, it's a relative parameter. Yeah, the difference between A and B is the gain. Okay, so how much power I am given for how much power it required to obtain this gain. So it is a relative parameter. So we have to always remember that we have to denote a gain, antenna gain, in terms of dBi or dBd. So most of the simulation software use dBi because it's a reference is isotropic source. But some we can also use a dBd also. Next point, next another parameter is like we always use 50 ohm as the characteristic impedance. Why is that so? Because see, it is not an arbitrary number that has been chosen by someone. No, it is selected based on several measurements. Okay, so they have measured for insertion loss. So it was minimum at 77 ohm. Okay, and they also measured the power handling capability of the particular RF component or element. That time they found that, so it is power handling was high at the 30 ohms. So they took arithmetic mean and geometric mean. Arithmetic mean was 53.5 and geometric mean was 48 ohm. So the in between value is 50 ohm. So that you are able to get minimum insertion loss, and also it's a compromise between these two parameters, peak power handling. That's why they chosen 50 ohm. Okay, next. So now we are moving on to antennas. Okay, so antenna is, what is that? So it radiates or receives the electromagnetic waves. Okay, next is, it is also called as a transducer between the between the electrical signal. So it converts the electrical signal to the electromagnetic waves or free space waves. Okay, so antenna can be explained through various pictorial representation. You can see here that the currents are transmit going in transmission lines, and when it comes out when it comes out of the antenna, it is in the form of space wave or spatial domain or angular domain. Okay, then you have several definitions there, converting the circuit to the circuit parameter to the gain, and frequency domain to the angular domain, and it converts the current to the waves. Okay, so these are all the different notation of antennas. So when you consider any antenna, first we have to understand what are all parameters to be, we have to pay attention. Okay, so one is frequency of operation. What frequency of operation I'm going to operate, or I'm going to design the antenna. That is very much required, because without that we can't design antenna. Next is radiation coverage requirements in terms of gain, in terms of beam width, what range I'm expecting. For example, how much distance I'm expecting to cover. For example, whether I'm going to use my antenna for satellite communication, which will be a very long distance, whether I'm going to use that for a Bluetooth communication, which will be a short range communication. So that dictates the gain and beam width. Okay, Next is polarization. So what polarization I'm going to operate, this we'll discuss later. And bandwidth with respect to gain. So bandwidth is a, it's a reference parameter. We can't, ideally say, ideally define bandwidth. It has to be with respect to gain or return loss or anything. Okay. Next is power handling, RF breakdown, and EMI/EMC, and mounting our clearance to sensors. So because we can't arbitrarily design some antennas, so then it will create an impact while deploying it. Okay. Next is size and mass, material what we are going to use, radiation environment, and many more. Okay. Now we'll discuss about, that was the environment parameters. Now we are going to discuss about what all antenna parameters we will consider doing the design after the design. Okay. First one is circuit quantities. Okay. Circuit quantities, nothing but antenna impedance and radiation resistance. Basically, radiation resistance is not a resistance. Okay. Actual resistance. It is the loss that happens inside the antenna while converting the electrical current to the electromagnetic waves. Next is impedance matching. Impedance matching you might have heard in the transmission lines and many things, VSWR and S parameters. So what are all space quantities? One is antenna radiation patterns. Radiation pattern that dictates how my antenna is distributing the power in the space. Next is polarization that we can predict from the radiation pattern, and beam area, how much it is covering, and directivity. Based on beam area, directivity will be dictated, power gain, effective aperture. So we are not going to discuss all these parameters. We are going to discuss key parameters. Okay, that is radiation pattern. So radiation pattern is nothing but the power distribution. That's all. Okay. So it is a pictorial representation of the power distribution that is induced by or excited by the or radiated by the antenna. So how we measure? For example, so you are consider a sphere. You are placing your antenna at the origin of this sphere. Okay. Now you are going to measure this, for example, using some probe antenna or anything. So you are going to measure at each point of this sphere. Okay. One rotation, then you will move in this rotation, and then record it. Okay. Then you plot. When you plot it, you will get this kind of three-dimensional pattern. It's a kind of, it is a plot of, for example, this point is this much power, this point this much power, this point this much power, this angle this much power, this angle. Basically, point means angle. Okay. With respect to it can be azimuth angle or elevation angle. Okay. It can be with respect to XY axis and Z axis. What angle? For example, some angle I'm measuring the power. How much is the power? And this angle I'm this point I'm measuring the power. This point I'm measuring the power. So from this, it's pictorial representation of the power distribution of the antenna. Okay. So we usually measure far field patterns. Okay. Far field patterns. Far field only we will see these kind of patterns because which is be stable patterns, and that we'll discuss later while discussing about measurements. Pattern shape is independent at the distance of far field. Okay. Next is for want of cost or at time, we always measure in the azimuth or elevation plane alone. Okay. Not in the three-dimensional. It is which is much costlier. Next is from radiation pattern. What we can from this radiation pattern. So what we get no. One is pattern bandwidth, which is nothing but how many frequency, how much what range of frequency I'm getting similar radiation patterns. That is called as pattern bandwidth. Next is gain. It is a derived parameter. So based on the radiation pattern, we can integrate the value and then find out the gain. There are formulas available. Next is side lobe level. So see, my intention is to radiate in this direction. Okay, not in this unwanted direction. So if I'm getting some radiation, that is called as side lobes. Next is beam width. So how much is my beam width? Which means, so how much power I'm radiating over the beam area. That's what dictated by the beam width. What polarization I'm operating? Polarization we'll discuss later. Beam direction, which direction I'm radiating, radiation efficiency. Okay. So now, so it's a typical radiation pattern you might have seen in the polar plot. It's a three-dimensional plot. It's a polar plot. from this we can clearly distinguish this is the main lobe, this is the back lobe, and this is the side lobe. Okay, so we from this we can find out which direction my antenna is radiating and what is my polarization, what is my beam width, and many things. Now another key parameter is this, the beam area and beam efficiency. Okay, so this parameter is very much required when we are talking about, for example, we are in 5G era. So here 5G, we are going to use beam based, beam forming concept. So how the beam area and beam efficiency interrelated, and how it is helping us to reduce the power. For example, see power requirement. So this is the typical scenario till now. Okay, it's a cell-based coverage. For example, you have an antenna. You might have seen in the cell tower, 3 antennas will be there. Okay, so each antenna will cover about 120 degree, not 120 degree exactly, about 120 degree. Okay, then so that it cover entire 360 degree. Okay, now so what is happening here? So whether device is there in particular sector or not, we are simply radiating the power, right? So that is wasting the power. So that's why they brought a new concept called beam forming concept. It's not a new concept. It has been there for more than several decades. Okay, so they chosen that concept in order to avoid the wasted power. You can see here only one UV is there, but I'm radiating an entire cell. Okay, so this is how it was wasting the power. So here what I'm using, beam forming concept, I'm narrowing down the beam so that I'm I'm not conserving the power. Second point is your UV also will not power also will not be drained. So next is antenna polarization. So polarization, basically it should be a elliptical polarization. So if we decompose that, then you may get a circular polarization and linear polarization. In linear itself, we have a horizontal and vertical. Okay, so on left hand in circular, it is left hand circular polarization, right hand circular polarization. Okay, now this is how it will be looking like. Linear polarization means, see, and radiation is happening in the one direction, but in circular polarization you can see the entire 360 degree you have a radiation. In elliptical, the difference between elliptical and so for example, if elliptical polarization only, if both angle and say this amplitude is same, the both in x and y axis, then it will become a circularly polarized. If you are if one component is, for example, x component or y component is 0, then it will become a linearly polarized. Next, it will be, so any electromagnetic wave will propagate like this. Next is, it is kind of polarizer. Okay, so because when you are working on a very complex environment, then you will get a mixture of signals. You have to filter out which is a desired signal. For example, I'm transmitting vertical polarized, then I may get a several polarized component. Okay, I have to filter out and then get the required component. This is called as polarizer. Okay, it's another point of polarizer. Next is bandwidth. Next parameter is bandwidth. So bandwidth for broadband antennas will dictate ratio, bandwidth ratio. For narrowband antennas, we calculate using this formula. Okay, upper cutoff frequency minus lower cutoff frequency divided by upper cutoff frequency plus lower cutoff frequency. Next is, so how antennas are classified based on its characteristics. Okay, so first characteristic is that we are going to discuss is power handling. So we can distinguish, for example, whether we are going to, for example, we have to decide which application we are targeting, whether it is high power application or low power application. So if you are high power application, you have to design horn antennas, waveguides, and arrays and reflectors. Okay, don't you should not use macrostrip patch, which is a low power, low gain antenna. So low power we have to target. So based on this characteristics only, we have to apply, we have to point that to right applications. Next is bandwidth. So narrow bandwidth means microstrip patch, loop, wire, dipole antennas. Broadband means horn, waveguide, spiral, helix, lock periodic. In patch also we have several designs, and ultra wideband, rigid horn antennas. Several patch designs also available. Okay. Next is polarization, linearly polarized or circularly polarized. In patch itself, we have some of the configuration will have support circularly polarized. Loop antenna supports this, helix and spiral and dual polarized horns, many more. Okay, and antenna radiation pattern. So which type of pattern I'm going to by my application demands. For example, whether it is a directional one or omnidirectional one. Okay, so based on that, I have to design. I have to choose particular antenna. Okay. Next is gain, medium gain, low gain, and high gain. Okay. Next is, so what are the, so based on this classification, now we have seen based on the characteristics, we have seen there's a number of antennas. Okay, and now we are going to see various forms of antennas. Okay, what are different forms of antennas? First one is wire antennas. So this was the only antenna evolved initially. Okay, initially the wire antennas were evolved. You might have heard about helix. I think the famous scientist Henry, I think Henry loop antenna. Okay, initially wire antennas were evolved. Okay, straight wire or biconical and loop antenna or many more antennas. In cars also you might have seen that wire antennas. Okay, so what was the problem with these wire antennas was, one is narrow bandwidth initially, though they could manage to achieve higher bandwidth, this kind of antennas, biconical antennas, but still it's not sufficient. Okay, and it was it was having very low gain. Okay, that was the reason, and power handling also much lower when compared to other antennas. So that's why they went to aperture antennas. Okay, so the reason being going forward for aperture antennas is to handle the high powers. So during the World War II, they want to handle, they want to design radar antennas that supports that require very high power. So they went to aperture antennas, horn, waveguides, reflectors, and many more. Okay, so the equivalent of these antennas you might have seen in your real day-to-day life is nothing but you might have a trumpet. You can see here that it's also a horn antenna. Okay, so you know the principle that acoustic waves or light waves or any waves, all are almost electromagnetic nature. So all of them will have similar behaviors. Okay, that's why these are the horn antenna examples that you see in real life, day-to-day life. Okay, next is microsweep patch antennas. Why they went for microsweep patch antennas? Because so this much aperture antenna or wire antenna, you can't for example, now we are moving forward compact designs. Space is very constrained, so in that case we can't go for these antennas, right? So that's why these microsweep patch antennas are evolved. It can be a conformally fed, it is so reliable, so not only reliable, and it can be placed along with the boards, and it is very much compact and nature, and many more flexibilities available in this microsweep patch antennas. Okay, now next category is that array antennas. Why we go for array antennas? We go for array antennas because where we horn and reflectors give very much high power. So in order, apart from that, we can use these array antennas concepts. Array antennas can be with the wire antennas or microsweep patch or array antennas also. Any other horn also horn array or reflector array, array of reflectors. Many things can be used. Why it is evolved? To have very long range communication like a satellite communication or radar communication and many kind. Okay, so equivalent of this that you see in your day-to-day life is that this LED bulb. It's a kind of array antennas, right? So if you plug out only one LED and see, it will not be visible for long range, right? Okay, but when you arrange it in that fashion, so that it will be visible for a long range. So that's why it is we can here we can feel that for long range we can have array antennas and phased array antennas. So you can see here that by controlling the current excited with the each LED, we can achieve the phased array concepts. And speaker also, you might have seen array of speakers. If you keep one speaker, it will not be audible to a certain distance. If you keep array of speakers, it will be audible to more than kilometer. Okay. Next is reflector antennas. This is another type of antennas used. So reflector antennas we might have seen in your cars and this wireless charge, power solar chargers and lens antennas. Okay. Now we are moving on to the actual topic of the day, antenna applications. So we are not going to cover all the antenna applications. So where see antennas find applications in many places like satellite communication, defense applications, implanted antennas, and short range communication like Bluetooth and anything. So it is mostly used in the the wireless, especially in telecommunication or mobile application or cellular applications. Antennas are find interesting most find area in cellular area only, because you can see that satellite will have a minimal usage. Okay, because only minimal number of satellites are being launched every year. But when compared to 5G or 4G or 2G or 3G, how many cell towers are there? How many are being replaced with the new antenna technology? How many mobile devices are evolving? So each device will have its own antenna configurations. So antenna find most application in the cellular domain. Okay, so that's why I'm going to cover one cellular domain, and then we will cover few more antennas applications. So before we move on, we are in 5G era. So we'll briefly discuss on 5G in one or two slides, and then move on to the because now we are going forward, and compared to 4G or 3G or 2G, we find several applications for antenna, because 5G is the integrated of many applications. So that's why we find most of the antenna being used in the 5G area. Okay, so before we move on, we'll briefly discuss about what is 5G. Okay, introduction to 5G. So unlike other technology, a paradigm shift has been happened in the 5G. Okay, technology. So I can give lecture for 2 hours on 5G, but now due to the want of time, we'll limitedly discuss. Okay, so 5G has a paradigm shift. It can it has many technologies coming together and working on that. So one such technology is like one principal distinguishable thing is that two bands we are going to use. One is sub 6 gigahertz. It is not only saying it's not no more sub 6 gigahertz, because we are going to use up to 7.125 gigahertz as according to the FCC spectrum, and millimeter wave spectrum as well. Okay. Next is how antenna technology evolved from 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. So in 2G and 3G, it was single input, single output. Your device will have one antenna, and your base station will have one antenna for one band. Okay, and you will have multiple antennas in your device because it supports 900 megahertz, 1800 megahertz, and one more. Okay, so based on that, each band you will have only one antenna. Okay, but in 4G they introduced MIMO in order to enhance the throughput. You might have seen that in 2G you had a very limited throughput. It will up to approximately 250 kbps, but in 3G it was higher mbps due to bandwidth. In 4G you found in terms of gbps, not in the GB, sorry, in terms of mbps. Why? Because they used a concept called MIMO. Okay, and in 5G it will be in gbps. Okay, in terabytes also. Why? Because we are going for massive MIMO and beamforming concepts. Number of concepts are antenna design, antenna concepts are being used in the 5G. 1 minute. Sorry for that. So as we discussed sometime before, 4G we have cell type of coverage where we are wasting most of the power, and we can't cover to longer range, longer distance. So that's why in 5G what they have gone, beamforming concepts. So we are pointing the beams wherever UEs are, and so therefore with the same power whatever being used, we are covering many devices and longer to a longer distance. So that is the advantage of this beamforming concept that is being employed in the 5G. What are key enablers in the 5G? One is we are saying that nowadays we are getting new several articles that very high speed data rates. How they achieve that? One is large spectrum is available because millimeter wave that has a very good bandwidth. Next is deployment of smaller cells. That is the another key concept. Area where some they pay attention. They paid much attention, which is smaller cells. So instead of covering larger area, they will put smaller cells so that each user will be pay much attention along with other technologies. For example, there are a Wi-Fi calling facility also available. For example, if you are now, I think in LTE also they applied that. So you are in by LTE or 5G technology. So you are moving into the shopping mall or indoor where there is no coverage of LTE or 5G. What they do, they hand over the call to the Wi-Fi network, local Wi-Fi networks. So Wi-Fi networks is already connected to the backbone of the backbones. So the where this 5G and 4G also connected to the backbones. So this backbone will dictate that I'm here. Okay, like why the calls will be handed over to the Wi-Fi network so that your call is not interrupted, or you feel will get a very good feel of it. So that is where narrowband IoT and Wi-Fi, Zigbee, Sigfox, and LoRa, and many more technologies are coming together. Therefore, we are getting the very high speed data rates and reliable communications and anytime connected. Next is use of multiple input or multiple output technology, massive MIMO along with beamforming technology. Just now before. So multiple input, multiple. What is the great advantage of MIMO is that instead of sending, for example, you have a multiple antennas and the receiver side. Instead of sending, if you are having only one antenna, you will have one set of data to here. But if you have multiple antennas, then you can send multiple data. Okay, so that you are enhancing the data rates. Next concept is that high spectral efficiency. So multiple antennas you can use by reusing the same frequency band. Second is high spectral efficiency can be achieved by multiple access techniques, advanced modulation coding scheme. What is it? This. So you can see here that if you are using QPSK, you can code at only 2 bits, right? Okay. But if you are going for a 16 QAM, you can code in a symbol. You can code 44 bits. When you consider 1024, I think it's 32 or 56, 30 or 64 bits. Okay. In a one symbol, you can code this much. So therefore, with the same bandwidth, same available frequency spectrum, your data rate is becoming very high. You can see here that channel capacity is increasing like anything because of the advanced modulation coding schemes. So this is the another area that where researchers are doing a great job here. Okay. Next is heterogeneous devices and applications. That's now we discussed that many for example IoT devices, ultra reliable low vehicular devices, or many devices are coming together and working together, so that it is an opportunity for 5G to enhance. Next is low latency communication. Another application is the low latency communication. One is so how they are achieving low latency communication? They are integrating many of the protocol stacks in the in the one equipment itself. So unlike in 2G, 3G, where most of the intelligence are happening, most of the processing happening at the core network side. But here they are offloading many of the processing to the end network side. So here that's what. So edge of the network, they are moving intelligence so that many things are served then and there, so that they are enhancing the high data rates, low latency communication. Another concept is the network slicing. So it is also a key parameter for low latency. For example, see, if an application approach, okay, for example, any device is coming to the network and asking for some service. It can be many service. For example, first the what network will do, it will find out which application, which service it wants, whether it wants higher data rate or low latency or low latency communication, or it's an IoT device. It will distinguish. It will find out which application for which application it is requesting, the device is requesting. Based on that, what it will do, it will slice the network. See, what it does is, so it is the app server or application server. From that, it will follow the different paths. So all these are software defined one. Okay, it is not a hardware. Hardware is already there. So in that hardware, all the software protocol stacks will be running. So that what happens is, see, for example, I'm going to browse video streaming. So it will follow this stacks. Okay, and I'm going to for example, remote surgery. Then it will remote surgery or high speed car and autonomous cars. Then it will follow this kind of architecture. Then IoT slice. So this is called as network slicing. Okay. So till the LTE, there is no network slicing concept. If you want to introduce a new feature, you have to change the entire network, at least part of the network components in order to support that feature. But here it is flexible. Okay. You no need to have fixed hardware. It will be a flexible hardware. So then and there it will be sliced and then to serve a purpose. Next is that concept behind high data rates. So we always discussed about several parameters. Now we discuss on fundamental parameters by the stated by the Shannon's capacity theorem. What it says, capacity depends on operating bandwidth, number of antennas, and SNR, and number of TX antennas and channel matrix. So these are all the parameters that dictates the higher data rates. Okay, so far away. Now we see how antennas are evolved based on applications. Okay, in 2G we had 1G, actually 1G. Sorry, I put 2G here. In 1G or 2G, in 2G also we had this kind of antenna, external antennas, right? So what was because it was a wire or loop, helix antennas. Okay. In 2G, what had happened? They also had external antennas, and then external antennas. They over the period of time they brought inside also, and then there was an advancement happened. In 3G, they went on. For example, in 3G there was a challenge because it has to support 3G bands, 2G, and Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and many more antennas. So that's why several antennas are coming into picture. So the design was somewhat advanced. Next is 4G antennas. 4G it was much more complex because what has happened is they had to support 2G, 3G, and then MIMO and 4G LTE antennas, MIMO, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and many antennas. So the design became very much complex. We will see in a minute. In 5G, it is even more complex. It has to support 4G and 5G, various configurations, millimeter wave, sub-6 GHz, 2x2 MIMO or 4x4 MIMO. Along with that, it has to support many of the ISM bands like Bluetooth communication, Wi-Fi, GPS, many more antennas are coming into picture. So that is why it is much complex. Okay. Next is 2G. So this is the UE side or mobile device side. In base station antenna side, initially it was 2.2 to 2.5G. You might have seen in the tower that tubular kind of thing. So inside which you will have this kind of antenna structure. When you visited, when you visit the shopping mall or anywhere, you might have seen this kind of panel antennas. Okay, this was this 2 to 2.5G scenario. In 3G, what has happened? They designed multiple antennas that supports 3G to 4G, that supports 2G. 2G itself, we have different bands, 900 megahertz, 800 megahertz, and 3G also supports 2100 megahertz, 2100 megahertz, many more bands it is supported, multiple antennas. And also, they meant to RRH also. They integrated the antenna with the radio itself. That also happened in the 3G to 4G. Next is in 5G, what has happened? See, you can see that millimeter wave massive MIMO antennas, where you will find plenty of antenna elements that has to support it. These are all the massive MIMO antennas. One second. So see, this was the another kind of pictorial representation of the number of antennas being used. Okay, You can see here that, see, you can see here that one antenna supports Bluetooth antenna and Wi-Fi antenna and LTE MIMO antennas. Okay, and you can see here that PCS CDM antennas, phone, so GPS antennas. So how many antennas are there? You can see here horizontal polarization, vertical polarization. So how many antennas are there? So how we are integrating? So that was is the complex design. So here you can see, it will be a good view to see. You can see here that it started from 1G, 2G, and 2G itself had several antennas. Now we can see that antenna has become this much tiny. Within that, you have all the features. Okay, so this will be a kind of sort architecture. Initially, we'll have baseband processing. Now RF front end, we say the digital analog converter, then RF front end, then RF antennas will be there. It will be transmitter and it will be received by the RF array, then process it. Okay. This is how any RF communication happens. Okay. Now, as we said, in 5G, we are going to use a phased array concept, massive MIMO array concept. So now it's a kind of phased array concept where we beam switching and beam forming happens, right? So how it happens, we'll see through a short animation. So, for example, how it happens is, see, it's a forecast for battle matrix design for in order to achieve 4 beams. Okay, you can see here that phase shifters, crossovers, and things are there. Okay, this is a forecast for battle matrix. If you excite this particular port, so this is the 4 ports: 1, 2, 3, 4. Here 4 antennas are excited. Okay, if you excite this port, you will get a beam kind of like this. Okay, if you exit this port, you will get another beam like this. So this kind of beam switching. Okay, if you exit this port, you will get another beam like this. If you exit this port, you will get a beam like this. Okay, so this is how phased array works, principle works. Okay, so inside the butler matrix, you will have crossovers and many phase shifter is there. So what it does is, you are exiting here, this inside which the phase is getting differentiated, so that 4 excitation values are being different, so that you are getting particular beam. Now this is how a phased array concept works. Here beam forming networks are available. So beam forming network is nothing but analog beam forming, digital beam forming. Okay, so in analog beam forming, the difference between digital and analog is that in analog beam forming, the baseband process data will be fed to multiple antennas here. Okay, so but in digital beamforming, so we need individual RF chain. For example, one data will be processed and then will fed to one and single antenna. Similarly for multiple antennas. So the advantage here is that one baseband process data will be sent via multiple antennas. Okay, so that cost is very much less, uh, efficiency is higher. But the problem is flexibility is not there. You can't, for example, if you want to process different bandwidths of data, in 5G it is it supports the multiple bandwidths. For example, if you want to support both 5G and LTE simultaneously, then this will not work. Okay, so that time what will happen is, you will have a data stream for 4G, data stream for 5G. So each will be processed individually. For example, 4G will be transmitted over this antenna, 5G over this antenna. So an analog beam, digital beamforming will help us in having flexibility. For example, you can send one set of digital streams with a certain bandwidth. Okay, in this RF chain, another certain bandwidth in this RF chain. Okay, so this is supports. But disadvantage here is that it is much costlier, because number of components requirement is very much higher here, whereas very much higher in the digital beamforming, whereas in analog beamforming number of components requirement is less. So that's why, therefore, in 5G what they have done is, they have done a hybrid beamforming approach, where see, you can see here that you can send a multiple kind of different kind of streams, which each being processed with the different bandwidth. Okay, Then what I am saying, that in that RF chain, then I am feeding to, here until this, it will be a digital beamforming. Here it will become it will be fed to multiple antennas, which is called as analog beamforming concept. So both digital beamforming concept and analog beamforming concept being used in order to effectively use advantages of both of them. Okay. So this is how phase excitation, by controlling the phase excitation, amplitude, and phase, we can switch the beams and many more. Okay, it is kind of thing. So we can switch the beam like this. You can see here. Okay. Now let's see short discussion on antennas for biomedical application. So nowadays, we are going forward for remote surgery also, and capsule antennas. Nowadays, there are technology has come. They will ask you to inlet the capsule. They will give you the capsule. Capsule will go inside, and then through some near field receiver, they will monitor your health also. For example, they are placing your pacemaker in your heart. Okay, then they will place capsule antenna there. They can monitor your pacemaker healthiness. They can sit anywhere in the world, and then they can monitor through Wi-Fi network and any internet world. Okay. So in order for biomedical antennas are finding many more applications, like tracking purpose. For example, in defense application also, they are widely using this. They will stitch any particular strips in your body, and then they can track. For example, if you are in thick forest area, you cannot come out, right? For example, if anything happens to you, they have to support you. So in that case, they can monitor your position through that antenna. So implantable antennas are there, and surface mounted antennas are there. They will paste like kind of thin film on your body, on the surface of your body. They can monitor from by sitting anywhere in the world. Okay. And there are so this is the kind of antennas they are designed. So how do you test it? So they test using equivalent tissues. For example, it can be a tissue of pig, or any other animals. Okay. So they take proper permission, and then they test it. Okay. So this is how it works. You can see here that, so they wanted to track a pig movement. Okay, they placed a capsule antenna inside that skin. Then they can monitor using base station system. They can monitor wherever it goes. Okay, and there are some more antennas. For example, you might have seen this Wi-Fi routers has this kind of antennas. See, you can see here that the Wi-Fi routers only they use this kind of antennas. And even you can make antennas. For example, using waste materials. There are some papers are available on this. Okay, and these are all another antennas. In the watch has some of the tiny antennas, and this is the mobile antennas. In pen drive also, so the USB drives, USB modems. You can see here that antenna A and B. So how much tiny is this? And CDM antennas. So these are all the modems and many components will have a tiny antennas. This is where it finds many antenna find many applications. Okay. Now so far we have seen my multiple antennas, and then okay. So Kalayaran sir. So how much time I have? I have some 10
Sir,
slides. I can cover it. Yeah.
sir, actually, we have planned to 7 to 8, sir. So no
Okay.
problem. You will take another 5 or 10 more minutes, sir.
Yeah. Please give me 10 minutes so that I can cover this.
Oh,
10 minutes.
okay,
By
sir. No
8:05
problem.
or 8:07, we can close. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So challenges and opportunities. Okay. So nowadays, no, you can't design a separate antenna and then amplifier, low noise amplifier, mixer, and separately, and then integrate it. It is very difficult now, because you are going to design multiple antennas will be placed multiple location. You have seen that how much complex is the mobile antennas, right? So you can't design antenna independently. It will be a integration, integrated design. And now system on chip, system of package concepts are coming up. And beamforming, these are all the 5G concepts, beam acquisition tracking. So these are all the some of the challenges we face. And CAD modeling also, it is very much because when you increase the complex, say complex, then computation complexity also will become directly proportional, right? When your design is complex, then computation complexity also increases, right? Because nowadays we are having multi-layer designs, large number of VRs, thin substrates, so many more factors are coming up, so that computation complexity is much higher. And okay, so when you consider antenna, and you have that antenna element design has so much constraints and complexity and requirements. Feeding methods, what feeding methods you are going to use, whether it is a multi-layer feeding method or single layer feeding method, direct feeding or indirect feeding, or many aperture coupled feeding, many feeding are there. How we are going to ensure the impedance matching, that is a very much challenge now. Because for a single patch antenna you can ensure the impedance matching, but when you are going to integrate many antennas, antenna elements, and then the amplifiers and many more components, that time achieving impedance matching is very difficult. Element spacing, because we can't have a spacing as we want, because space is the constraint, and polarization, bandwidth, and many more elements. And beamforming concept also, you find algorithms, and how much efficient is the algorithm, because it has to respond in a fraction of milliseconds. And beamforming network and crosstalk also will happen, because when you are bringing more components together, because beamforming will have multiple components, so it should not talk each other, so that your beam gets disturbed. Antenna mutual coupling, impedance mismatch, phase control resolution, and many more parameters. Okay. And fabrications wise, it is very difficult now, because very difficult means that is a challenge. So that several research avenues are coming up. What substrate I have to choose while designing antennas, and what is the substrate loss I have to consider, thickness of the substrate, surface roughness, and many more parameters. Okay. And characterization also now becoming more challenge now, because for example, nowadays millimeter antennas will be enough a millimeter, very small size. So how do you place it in the chamber and then measure it? That is a huge challenge now. Okay. Now, as I've said sometime before, simulation testing, it's not going to be a single independent design. It's going to be a co-simulation. Okay. For example, antenna will be designed in the CST simulation studio, or any HFSS or anything. Then they integrate the, for example, amplifier design in using ADS. Then integrate both, and then they feed the parameters from here to here, here to here, and then here to here, so that final design will be a optimal one. Okay. This is how the core simulation happens. This is how, see, you can see here that input input circuit is there, and the input matching network, amplifier and match output matching network, and the antennas. Okay. What you will do, you will vary the parameters of input matching network, output matching network, and antennas and amplifier parameters, in order to achieve the desired bandwidth or desired characteristics. Okay. Now we'll move on to the antenna. So far we have seen measurement, simulation. Now we'll move on to the antenna measurements. Okay. So as I mentioned before, antenna measurements are done in the far field distance, where we are getting, see, antenna in nature, it will emit the spherical wave in nature. So when it receives, and the receiver antenna, if you are having, for example, this will be spherical nature. So the acceptable phase different deviation is that 22.5 degree. If you decompose that into, if you calculate the far field distance, if you calculate this distance based on that 20.5 degree, you will get this 2 square by lambda value by solving the equation. Okay. Now this is how it will look like. For example, it will be a spherical wave at the receiving antenna. You can see that almost kind of planar wave at the far field distance. Okay. You will have radiating, reactive near field, radiating near field, and far field also. Okay. Next is this is how antenna will be measured. You will the measured results will look like. Okay. Now, where do you measure these antennas? There are multiple kind of setups are available. One is OATS, open area test site measurement setup. What is an open area? It's an open area where you measure, you know, you will have flexibility to measure. You can have a long distance also. Achieving the far distance is very easy. But the problem is when rain happens, or, you know, any sandstorm or anything happens, then you can't do measurements. This is the disadvantage here. Okay. So this is the open at a site available at Samir. Okay. And how do you measure this? You can you will have a signal generator and transmitting antennas. Signal generator, transmitting antenna. You will have a receiving antenna DUT here, and then receiving antenna, from receiving antenna DUT you will capture the power values either using power meter or spectrum analyzer. Okay. So the disadvantage being here is environmental conditions. We have to measurements are prone to environmental conditions. Therefore, we are going for anechoic chamber. So, in anechoic chamber is a controlled environment measurement. Okay, because, you know, you will have absorbers, and outside, behind that you will have a metallic planes, so that, you know, outside interference signal will not get inside the chamber, and inside the whatever signals are there will not go out. Okay, so whatever you get here is direct, radiated wave from here to here. Okay, so for example, in open area test site, what happens is, open area test, see, it can, for example, one second. So open area test site, another disadvantage is that, see, for example, it can reflect from here and then receive here. Okay, it can, there may be a direct waves and also the reflected waves. It can come due to climatic condition, it may receive a signal may be affected. Okay, so in order to avoid that, we are going for anechoic chamber. Here, you know, what happens is, for example, if a waves impinge on this place, it will get absorbed by this absorber, so that we are ensuring the whatever receiving antenna receives is the actually transmitted from the transmitting antenna, not the reflected or multipath signals. Okay. So this is how many devices are tested in the anechoic chambers. Next method is anechoic chamber. The problem is, you know, constructing anechoic chamber for a large chamber is very difficult, as well as the, you know, very much costly. So in order to avoid that, people are, you know, researchers have avoided the near field measurements. It can be a direct far field or indirect far field. They have come up with the compact antenna test range, where, you know, you can reduce the distance by, you know, using the reflector principle. So reflector principle, what happens is, achieving planar waves in the shorter distance is the fundamental phenomena here. Okay, compact antenna test range. So this is the near field measurement. Here we are estimating the direct far field pattern, but I know in indirect far field, nothing but you use probes to, for example, you use probes to measure the sometime before we mentioned that in antenna field range you have a reactive near field, radiating near field, and far field, right? So we measure, for example, we place the probe near to the device. Okay, DUT, a device under test, antenna under test. So we'll place the probe, and then we'll measure the fields. Then you take IFFT. Okay, IFFT, IFFT or FFT, sorry, FFT. Then you will find out for a fast Fourier transform. Then you will find out the radiation pattern. This is the indirect far field. Okay, here we are not capturing the radiation pattern directly. What we are doing, we are field component quantities we are measuring through probes. Then take the FFT and appropriate processing mechanism. Then you will get the radiation pattern. That's why we call it as indirect far field method. That is called as IFF. And, you know, this is the simple antenna measurements. Next, in 5G and all, we have an OTA method, over the air measurements. Okay, so here what you will do is, over the air measurement means, so in physical scenario, for example, you keep your device on the sphere itself. Some I think some half an hour before, 1 hour 45 minutes before, we mentioned that we only measure on the two principal planes, horizontal and vertical azimuth and elevation planes, right? In 5G, we'll have, you know, over the air measurement method, where, because, you know, you will have a beamforming happening, right, in different direction, that we need to capture, right? We can't capture with this fundamental measurement setup. we have to have a over there measurement setup. So where, for example, I am exciting a field in this direction, so that I know if my this antenna receives means I am transmitting in the right direction, right? For example, I am transmitting in this direction, okay, but I am getting this. For example, I am intent to transmit in this direction, but I am getting signals on this antenna, which means I am my antenna is transmitting in wrong direction. So here, what we are ensuring is that whether beam forming is beam switching and beam forming happening at right direction or not, and many more parameters can be measured using this over there measurement setup. Okay, there are multiple setups are available. This kind of OTA testing. Okay, so you will have a network emulator, and you will have a channel emulator. Then you will place your device here, and then you do the over there measurements. Okay, this can be another lecture. We can discuss more on this. So this is how it will measure. See, beam will be switching like this. Okay. So what you will do, you will have two axial positioner, which will rotate in both in azimuth as well as the elevation. Okay. Then you will, for example, beam will be shifting like this. So then wherever you receive the signal, then we can confirm that beam direction, right? This is how over there measurement will happen. So these are the design and design and testing tools. So MATLAB, ADS, MATLAB for algorithms basically, and also nowadays the antenna also being designed using MATLAB. So to certain extent, ADS for 2D structures, HFSS, CST, FICO, MPRO, EMPRO, and many more softwares are available. Testing solution, Keysight has some rich solution, and Android so R&S also everyone is having their own indigenous products and a YAV solution also. So now let's come to an end. I hope I'm done with the presentation. Okay. Several parameters we have discussed: antenna characteristics, various types of antennas and applications, various opportunities and challenges for and avenues for research, and simulation measurement tools and various tools. So that's all from my side. So thank you for your time, for listening to me. Thanks for your opportunity as well. So if you have any questions, I can take up a few questions. Thank you, organizers, for the opportunity.
Sir, thank you so much, Professor.
Okay, thank you.
Now the session is open for discussion.
Good evening, sir.
Professor?
Sir,
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Kindly share your
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, Professor.
many of them now they started.
Sorry, sir.
Sir, your contact details, your email ID or something. You please share in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
No problem, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yes, sir. Many of us we are doing research in antenna. So now they are finding a lot of problems to complete their research. Anyway, thanks for your complete presentation on antennas. Anyway, you have started from basics and you have ended up with recent research on antenna. Anyway, thanks for your nice and complete presentation, Links and sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you,
One more thing, thanks for accepting our invitation and thanks for spending your valuable time with us. Thank you once again. I request the faculty members to please note SAR's contact details and email ID. Anyway, sir.
I have shared in the chat box, sir.
Yeah, yes.
Shared in the chat box all the details. Okay, you can find everything.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anyway, if anyone they need help,
definitely, sir. Most welcome.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, thank you.
I
sir.
have been helping unknown persons also. So they are seeing my. I have posted some videos in YouTube. So they see the videos and then ask me help, and then I am supporting them also. So I am most welcome. So
yes.
I am.
Nice. Anyway,
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, professors. Thank you, Dr. Linguswamy, for accepting our invitation to present and share your valuable work through this FDP series.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you so much, and team, all the professors for listening me for more than 1 hour. Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you all, professors. We will wind up the session if no other discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you.